Hello and welcome to Ask GMBN Tech. Now this is the show where we answer your questions. Now we have a special guest today, Chris Smith from EMBN, who's kind of an OG hucker and has probably broken more bikes than I've ever seen.
True. Done a few in my time, that's for sure.
Yeah, so an awesome resource for us to pull in and we'll get into some questions.
Cool.
So the first question is from SabDog84 and he says, this isn't really a tech question, but is it worth buying an XDemo bike? I live in Whistler for 8 years and would never dream of buying a demo bike from a resort or bike park. But now I live in a smaller Canadian city, so huge mountains aren't so much of the issue. So basically he's been offered a really good deal at 45% off a bike that seems to be in pretty good condition, but it's an XDemo bike. It's
not a bike park bike either, so it's been used pretty gently. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a good move, to be fair. If you're pretty much half in what you're saying. You've gone from 6k down to 3k. That's a massive jump. I think the problem is with buying new bikes, it's like with buying a new car. As soon as you drive out the showroom, you've lost that value instantly.
That's true.
And if it's been ridden 10 times, that's nothing, So I think it's a good move.
And I think especially he's talking here about still the shop's going to cover you for warranty.
Oh,
which is
no-brainer then. Pretty much.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head the first time. Sometimes I would be hesitant if a bike has been in a bike park for 1 or 2 seasons because it's going out and it's doing, say, 10 laps a day.
Yeah. And it's probably casing 1,000 jumps a day and landing flat 100 times a day. But it's going to have a hard life for sure.
I think it's one of those things as well. When you get really good riders, even on a World Cup level, they hit stuff very fast, but a lot of the time they're off the brakes.
Definitely.
So that rough, it's very rough. It's like brrr.
It's super smooth, isn't it? So it does get an easier life. And
then you see people in the bike park and they're on the brakes, they hit both sides of everything.
Smashing the way through it. So I think those bikes are definitely going to have a hard life. But as you say, if that's been used 10 times in a pretty chilled area, then that's an absolute steal, I think.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, we reckon go for it.
Okay, so you got this one in from Daredevil? Daredevil.
2.0.
2.0. Hi guys, my name is Noah. I'm a 14-year-old racer. I have the Race Face Effect dropper post, and I was thinking about getting the Magura dropper post. Are they worth the money?
Ooh, I mean, I think of the time when I was that age, and even though the Magura isn't necessarily more expensive than a really kind of like a Reverb or a KS, spending, to me, 400 quid on a seat post is gnarly business.
It is a lot of money, isn't it?
It is. I would go for something. You can get something now for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Magura one, I love the wireless option on it. I would love to be able to, I think you say it's an investment into one bike, but perhaps if you've got another bike that you haven't got a dropper on, you can swap that seat post from bike to bike. So
that's very true.
It's kind of half the price of, so it is effectively doing that.
Yeah.
And as I say, fitting it in and out is a cinch. Obviously, she's got no cables going in and
true.
out.
Yeah,
so
never thought of that.
Maybe that could be a good option, but yeah, I'm quite into it myself.
No, I love them, and I think anything that cleans up a bike. Yeah. But I just think, I mean, I don't know how the total cost of your bike is at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's a 300 quid bike and you're putting a 400 quid seat post on, I'd say you can get some great ones. I know the Giant used to do the really cheap ones. There's some great Crank Brothers seat posts about as well. Yeah. And often the OE ones for 150 quid.
Yeah, definitely. There are some bargains on there. I think that technology, when it first came out, was quite hard to crack, but I think those budget guys have worked on all those designs, and it's pretty rare to get a cheap cable seat post, dropper seat post fail these days.
Yeah, no, they're pretty good.
So I think even for those budget lines, that'd be a good option too.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. So next we have a question from TS. TS, right. And he says, please explain how the difference between a high and a low setting on a flip chip on a specialised stump jumper.
Right.
So what does the low setting mean?
So the low setting, as I understand it, is this the new 2019 bike I'm thinking? So it's
super long, super low anyway.
Super long, super low anyway. Now, I know a few guys here have got those in the office, and a lot of those guys are running them in the high positions because they are so low at the moment. So the difference is being, as I assume it, the flip chip in the low position is going to be a low bottom bracket, slack head angle, perfect for descending and more downhill, sort of aggressive enduro riding, whereas the flip chip in the high setting is going to be a steeper head angle, steeper seat angle, higher bottom bracket, and obviously it's slightly more biased towards sort of cross-country-ish, in a word,
Is there any drawbacks in your mind of running a low setting for descending?
Depends on the sort of course you're riding. I think pedal strikes is my main thing when it comes to low bottom brackets. Obviously got amazing turning capability of that bike, so your weight's really low on the cranks, but pedal strikes is definitely an issue. It depends how steep the area is. I suppose you're riding, you're pedaling everywhere. what are you thinking for a low BB?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Sometimes people focus so much on their frame geometry. Oh, I've got to get the bottom bracket height, and then they run massive stack pedals, so that goes out the window, or really long cranks.
Right.
So I mean, it's fine-tuning a package, but
exactly.
I think there's some consistency that's important. I personally I think now that a couple of years ago, you'd always want, kind of steep run for climbing, and it was really important because sometimes, especially when you were kind of an early pusher of a 1-by drivetrain, and you were running like a 36, you need a really steep drive angles just to get up
to get up the hills kind of thing.
So hopefully that's kind of illustrating the difference, but we're going to touch back on this later on. I've similar questions coming up as well, so hang tight.
So 1095 Workhorse, he's asking, what SR Centaur fork did you have on your bike? What also happened to Progressive Shock? Why did they leave the mountain bike industry?
Okay, cool. So a double header, a secondary question snuck in there.
2 questions, nice.
I think Doddy was running a Duralux, which is like the enduro fork on the front, and a Tri-Air Shock, which is their kind of piggyback or kind of enduro shock. Although interestingly enough, you do see some Suntour sponsored downhill teams actually running that Tri-Air Shock. So it is really good, And the fork, the Duralux, I believe, uses the same damper and the same air spring as the Rux downhill fork. So you're getting something that's like a real hard hitting fork.
Got some exciting stuff, haven't they? Suntour,
they have.
Working on it pretty hard.
No, they have. We were using them at Polygon, and they are really good, super tunable.
Yeah.
And I've always thought it's little things like the IFP, if you want to rebuild your forks. The thread that you bleed it through is the same diameter as a spoke thread.
Is it?
So to get it out, you just dial in a spoke and it pulls little things. It's nice.
Nice
it's cool.
Bits like that. It's good.
In relation to your second question, what happened to Progressive Shocks? They had the 5th element, if you remember.
I do remember,
a few years ago, which basically used a inertia valve to give lots of support under pedalling, similar to actually what the Specialized Brain does now.
Yeah,
although perhaps in a harder hitting capacity. They kind of died out, but they're still huge in motorsport. I actually did a bit of Googling.
Yeah.
They're still healthy. They perhaps felt that mountain biking was a bit of a dead end.
Really? So more money in the sort of automotive industry, trucks, motorbikes, things like that, I guess.
Yeah, motorbikes, I guess.
That's where they make their money now. Nice.
I actually looked up some stuff just to see what, various bits and bobs were getting up to. And ended up looking up Formula 1 dampers.
Right.
And they're like same size as a mountain bike damper.
Are they?
Yeah, not even joking.
Really
I couldn't even believe
ones.
it. Yeah, it was just like that big.
Super light, cool. I'd imagine, as well, like titanium and all that stuff.
All the business. Yeah.
Nice. Happy Biker, he's saying, please detail in millimetres what you would describe as a short chainstay versus a long one, describing that spectrum. Please discuss what you believe an ideal chainstay length to reach length or other dimensions ratio would be, or perhaps for different purposes, which would work better. Now this sounds right up your street, Henry.
Word. I think I'm damned if I do or damned if I don't here, because I'm going to annoy somebody. For me, personally, anything on a trail bike, anything less than 430 is what I would describe as short.
Definitely, yeah.
Anything longer than, say, for a large, 445, 450, anything longer than that I describe as long.
Definitely, yeah.
And the difference is, I suppose, is, well, the shorter your chainstays are, the more you can really kind of, slap bass in turns, if you know what I mean. You can just absolutely just... Yeah, and also get your weight with the back wheel. It makes it easier to manual. Yeah. But on the flip side, and the reason I used to have a bike with like 430, and it kind of frustrated me because... Coming to what we were talking about earlier on, I didn't have that lower gearing. Right. And often it was quite hard to keep weight over the front when climbing.
Yeah, always wants to wheelie and go on the back wheel, especially if you've got a short top tube married to that.
Exactly,
so every climb,
So I personally think about 435 is nice. On a trail bike, on a downhill bike, I'd say, I think on a trail bike, 470 reach paired up to about a 435 rear end is about right.
Sounds pretty bang on the money for me as well.
And on a downhill bike, a bit shorter in the reach just because the fork is so much further raked out. It's about 460 and a 445 rear end. That's what I've kind of settled on. Yeah, trying different bits and bobs. And
sounds pretty bang on for me as well, around those sort of figures as well. Yeah, more into that short change there. I think my focus is more sort of gravity-based stuff, messing around in bike parks, things like that. So I do like the back end to be slightly shorter. I would have that compromise for the climbing. So.
But also there's an issue where, basically it's essentially cost cutting.
Don't want to do that.
Moving swiftly on, cost cutting. Yeah. And we have the issue where, one frame size is paired up to any frame size is paired up to one chainstay size. Yeah. And it's kind of lazy, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
I get totally what you're saying. There's manufacturers just copying each other's geometry.
Yeah.
It's just coming like a staple sort of, a number they work from.
Yeah.
Is not right. They should be dialing it in themselves.
Yeah, totally. And like, why is it that a small and extra large has the same chainstay length? I think it's it doesn't really make sense to me.
He's changing.
Yeah, we'll do it. Take to the streets. Sweet. So I've got a question from Josh Ward.
Yeah.
And he says he needs some help. He's got an orange crush hardtail that he has built up, and it feels hard to jump, i.e. bunny hop and jump over things, compared with his Trek Remedy and old hardtail.
Right.
I'm aware it's something with the geometry, as Seth's Bike Hacks, which is another YouTube channel, mentioned the same with his orange. What can I do to counter this and fit it easier to get into the air? I actually watched the video with Seth, and he's saying how the low, long geometry means that the lower your bottom bracket is, the harder it is to pivot your weight around it.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, I think if you can bunny hop, you can bunny hop a downhill bike. You have to exaggerate your movement more.
Exactly, and I think maybe dial in the cockpit a little bit more. You think about like the rise on your bars, how you've got your bars lined up, length of the stem. I think all that sort of cockpit area is quite something you want to dial in if you want to be doing that style of riding. And again, what you said about the new school geometry of like the long, low, slack hardtails, like I can jump on, I've got the Nukeproof Scout at home, and that is long, low and slack. And it is a totally different bike to riding, like an old school sort of jump, sort of hardtail. It's a totally different bike. But once you get into the swing of it and know how it handles, I think it's just basically dialing it in, spending time on that bike. I think when you are swapping from bike to bike, like I do regularly, it's really hard to get those same techniques dialed in on each one. So it's purely practice on the bike that you want to ride the most, really.
Yeah, totally. And there's actually Neil did a really good how-to for actually the GMBN main channel. And he talks a lot about this L movement in his hips when bringing the weight over the back.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm going to throw to that because it really is, even for experienced riders, worth checking out.
And that's one of the big mistakes people make, is missing that straight down. They go diagonally down and back at the same time. So moving on to the L shape. And the easiest way of practicing this is don't try and actually lift the front wheel, just do the motion. So it's from ready position, straight down, then push the bike forward. So 2 movements, straight down, push the bike forward.
Right, we've got Storm Crimson's been in touch.
That is a cool name. He sounds like a James Bond villain. Storm Crimson, we meet again.
Can I put tubeless sealant in an inner tube? Would it help with anything?
I mean, it might help seal up the tube. If but it's getting it in there because a lot of tubes don't come with removable valves.
Exactly.
The way that people would normally do it, a couple of years ago when perhaps tubeless systems weren't as reliable as the ones we take for granted now, is you would seal a tube like a tubeless valve. So get a square of rubber.
Okay.
Slide it over, cut a hole in it, square, and then put it through the valve. Bolt it tight, and then put tubeless sealant in there.
Okay.
With a tubeless tyre and tubeless tape or duct tape.
Yeah.
And then it means if you pinch flat the tube, it just fills the outer chamber
with tubeless sealant.
With the air, which has already got the tubeless sealant in there.
So how about, I was thinking, obviously inside a tube, generally you've got a load of chalk and stuff. Yes. How does that react with that? Or do you have to clean it out?
Yeah, not very well. It's something you'd use in a race perhaps, or not an all the time situation.
Yeah.
I think the other issue is that with the inner tube pressing against the carcass of the tyre, it kind of rubs the sealant, basically dries it out very quickly, and almost makes it congeal. So you don't get so long out of your sealant. So I'd say it's probably not really worth. I think sealant, tubeless systems now are good enough.
Yeah, I think they're totally reliable. And I think if you're going to that much effort to fill an inner tube up with, tubeless sealant, then why not just go fully tubeless? You're totally right. Missing the point doing that. Obviously, maybe you haven't got tubeless ready tyres, could be an option.
That's true.
That's quite a big initial outlay. But I think once you're into it, you've got that setup. It's super reliable. It's a lot less faff than it used to be. Literally saved my ass yesterday riding home from work. I rode through this field, a massive thorn in the front tyre, and it was just spurting sealant out. But luckily, I had no tools. I was commuting back from work, and it could have been me stranded, but it literally sealed pretty much straight away. I was good to go. So
done.
Yeah, tubeless, definitely the way forward.
You can get these little ZFAL make them, I think Hutchison make them, which you sometimes see with the cross-country riders on their seat posts. And it's like that CO2 mixed with some type of, I don't think it's a water-based sealant, but an aerosol-based sealant.
Okay.
And so that can work really well as well.
That sounds really good.
Yeah,
cool.
That's pretty sweet. So I've got a question from Michael Rucker, and he says, I've watched Doddy's essential press fit bottom bracket maintenance video and I have a question about removing a bottom bracket that is installed with the retaining compound. Are there any tricks to remove it other than just hitting it harder with the hammer? Once it's out, do you need to clean the residue with anything?
Right. So is it fitted with, I'm not quite sure what the...
So sometimes with your bottom brackets, they can creak or perhaps work their way loose.
Right.
So you put a retaining compound in there, which kind of acts as like a putty.
Right.
To go
so not like a Loctite based, there's nothing like that.
That's what I'm confused about, because some people would use Loctite in that situation. I'm assuming he means...
The proper retaining compound.
Yeah, just the Park Tool stuff.
Right. Well, the only thing, if you are using Loctite, I know I use it occasionally on motorbike stuff. We actually pour boiling water on there to like try and break that bond. Maybe that could be something that might happen if you're using Loctite. I don't know about the proper retainer.
I would say it's a difficult one. Well, I probably, and I have had to do that before, metal frames. If you've got a carbon frame, probably wouldn't introduce it to too much heat. But if you get something there that can be used to drive it through, be careful though, because on some frames it's so easy to act. There are some little flanges and where the tube entrance is and stuff like that. But check with a torch. You're contacting on nothing but the bottom bracket. And just give it some of the beans, I reckon. Yeah,
and I think a lot of stuff when it is stuck, I think that hot and cold, if you can combine heat contracting and extend, I think that's really good if you can get away with it. But as Henry said, just make sure you're not going to damage your frame in any way if you're introducing a lot of heat to it.
Yeah.
Nice. So this one's from Ian Infante. How long does tubeless sealant last? I'm resurrecting a bike that hasn't been ridden in a year and a half. I set the tyres up tubeless about 2.5 years ago. If the tyres hold air, am I good to go? Thanks in advance, Ian.
I would say normally a reasonable expectation for tubeless sealant to last is the life of a tyre. That means regular riding. When it wears down, done. I think 2.5 years. I mean, it might work, but I would be
definitely whipping that out, and I think just filling that, I would go. I think from my past experience, it depends how much you ride, where you keep the bike, exactly what Henry said, temperature and things like that, and the make of the sealant if it's a budget one, etc.
Yes, true.
I think like if you've got a decent quality one, I'd try and top mine up about every 4 to 6 months, something like that. I think in general, so if you've got a bike in storage, particularly if it's been stood still, it could tend to puddle up and pretty much go hard. So you might find you have a really hard part of the tyre, which is in fact solidified. It's just going to be going around with a solid part in the bottom of the tyre. You're probably going down the road and you could feel that, especially when the wheel goes up to speed, you might find yourself bouncing out the saddle and flying over the hedge. Yeah, totally. And so many sealants now are water-based. And so that basically, when the sealant dries up, it is just water evaporating, and the sides of our tyres do just let, you notice your pressures goes up and down, and a lot of the time when it's going down, it's because air's just walking straight out the sidewalk. So I think if you've got 2.5 years, this sealant probably doesn't owe you anything. I think it's probably okay to say, that'll do. Yeah, that's good. That's some good mileage, for sure. Yeah. So this one's from Batu. I don't know how to make the right sound. Setin? I'm really sorry if I'm butchering your name. Batu Setin. And he says, in extreme cases, can you use butter or margarine instead of grease? This is something we get asked a lot, and it never goes the other way. No one ever says, can you eat grease? You know what I mean? Where's the parity? What, can you put grease in my sandwiches? I actually remember doing this as a kid. I think I was desperate. I think I bought a new headset in my BMX, and the only thing I had was mum's margarine. Getting a spoon in there, spreading it around with a knife, rebuilding my headset. So I have done it, but I think now, obviously, that's something I would be doing. But I think in an emergency situation, it's better than nothing, for sure. I would completely agree in an emergency situation, but when people ask this, when it's proposed, I always wonder what this emergency situations are. You better grease this headset, with a hostage, you know what I mean? Oh, okay, I've only got Lurpak. That'll do it, okay. Locked in the larder and servicing your bike instead. But I've heard of people using olive oil on chains, and apparently that is not a long-lasting, but quite an efficient lubricant. Definitely, I think, more lubes are always better than none, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah, moving swiftly on. So that is it from Ask GMBN Tech this week, but please keep your questions coming in with the hashtag Ask GMBN Tech just below. Special thanks to Chris Smith for Thank you very much. Holding our hand for the difficult bits, and we got through in one piece. Now I'm going to throw you to a really cool video. I hope it's kind of a fun video with hopefully some information as well about dropper post hacks. Nice. So I'm going to click that one down there and go check it out and tell me what you think. And if you want to see Dolly checking out the new XD group set, check this one out over here. It's a really cool vid as well. Yeah, it's awesome. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers, guys.